You've decided to take the plunge and GM your first game. Congratulations. Let's go over everything you need to know. The rules, improvisational acting, storytelling,
mechanics,
scheduling,
traversal, alignment,
interpersonal skills,
homebrew
time
rules,
management,
stat
reading
blocks, opportunity
comprehension,
attacks,
dice
character
probability.
biceps, encounter
Wait.
design,
Hold up.
game
This is an
balance.
overwhelming amount of information. How can somebody possibly learn all of this? I'm GM Zeke from Knights and Knights Games. Today, I'm going to show you 10 steps that you can follow that will make learning to Game Master easier for you. Step 1. Choose a game that advertises itself as rules-lite. Games like that tend to require less time to learn and less mental energy when you're at the table, which works in your favor while you're trying to learn the ins and outs of the Game Master's craft. If your regular gaming group plays Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and they're hesitant to try anything new, you might want to suggest Shadowdark as a compromise. It uses a lot of the same game mechanics as Dungeons & Dragons, and it will feel very familiar, but it is a bit simpler and easier to digest from the Game Master's perspective. If you don't have a regular gaming group, or if your regular gaming group just won't budge on the system that they like, you might try advertising an online game on roll20.net or groupfinder.eu. If at all possible, try to play in a game before you run it. You can check with your local gaming group to see if anybody has any experience with the system that you're looking at, and if they'd be willing to run a one-shot or a couple session game for you. If you don't have any luck with that, you can also try roll20.net or groupfinder.eu. You might also try startplaying.games if you don't have any luck with Roll20 or GroupFinder. Playing at a game first is important for two reasons. One, it lets you see the game at a slower pace and without the extra mental load that comes with being a game master. Also, it lets you see how another game master handles the unique challenges that game is going to present. Now, step 3 is whatever game you choose, limit your players to just one sourcebook. Now, that's really important, not for the reason, though, that your players are going to assume. They're going to assume something about game balance, right? They're going to assume that you don't want them to play the cool thing from the latest sourcebook. But that couldn't be further from the truth. As a game master, power is in your hands. You always have a bigger monster. If they bring a bigger, powerhouse PC, you always have something bigger than what they can bring. So it's not about power. It's about your cognitive load. And if you haven't picked up on the theme of this video by now, it's about managing what we call that cognitive load. That is how much you have to think about at once and how much new information you're trying to get and learn and synthesize at one time. By limiting your players to just one source book, you're limiting the amount of information that's coming into your brain, because your brain here is the limiting factor when you're a new GM or when you're new at a particular system. Step 4 is to invite only supportive players to your game, if you have a choice in who you invite. You know your friends. Some of them are going to be more challenging than others at the table. Some of them will have a tendency to goof off. Some of them will want to challenge you as the game master, whether that's challenging you on rules calls or trying to find the ways that the game system itself breaks down. And that's how they have fun with the game, and that's okay, but not at a table where the game master is trying to learn. That doesn't mean you can't invite them to the game eventually. Just wait until you're a little bit more comfortable with the system that you're running and with the game master role first. You also want to be particularly careful of inviting veteran game masters. Veteran game masters, myself included, we all want to be very helpful and we want to give you all the advice from all of our years of gaming and all of our many experiences. And that can be wonderful and a great resource to have at the table, but it will put your cognitive load right to its limit very quickly. If you do want to invite that veteran game master, I suggest that you ask them to watch this video before the campaign begins. Step 5. Let your players handle their own abilities. Don't bother with studying how player characters' class abilities or ancestry abilities work, because that's what your players are going to be studying. They will learn that for themselves. Use that time and use that mental energy and that space to study other things that are more relevant to your role at the table. Step 6 is to plan to run shorter sessions. 1.5 hours to 2.5 hours is going to be right about your sweet spot here. That short amount of time behind the GM screen is going to give you a lot to think about. Plan 3 to 5 encounters per session and plan them all ahead as much as you can. Make sure that you're looking up your monster stat blocks ahead of time, and you may want to use all of the same kind of monster or NPC for each encounter. A neat little trick here is to make it feel like you've got different kinds of monsters or different kinds of characters in an encounter. Describe them differently. For example, if you've set your party against 5 wolves, describe one wolf as bigger than the others, meaner, and with a black pelt. Even though his stats are exactly the same as all of the other wolves, your players will treat him differently. The reason why we're building our encounters ahead of time is to reduce the amount of new information that you have to learn on the fly during the game. Game designers love to give each unique monster its own little trick or its own little quirk, from goblins that scuttle out of the way after they take an attack, to wolves that trip, or in a different edition, wolves that get bonuses when they gang up on somebody. And that's not something that you want to have to try to commit to memory mid-game. Okay, I'm going to get some flack for this one. Don't read your player characters' backstories. If you're watching this video and you're a veteran game master, this advice is not for you. This advice is for the brand new game master. Keep that in mind. When you are planning your first games and you're learning the ropes, resist the temptation to try to mine your player characters' backstories for plot points and for information. That is absolutely something that you will want to do later on, but when you're starting out, it's going to add unnecessary levels of complexity to your game prep. As a brand new game master, you're going to run into a lot of situations where you may not know the rules very well, or you may not know a particular rule at all. That's perfectly okay. But what you want to do is make it up rather than looking it up in the book. For most D&D-alike games, that means you're going to pick either an attribute or a skill for your player to roll. And you can even ask your players what skill they'd like to use. Ruling on the fly like this is great practice for later on. Even when you are very comfortable with the rules, you're going to run into situations where the rules in your game don't cover what's going on, or don't cover them well, or maybe they don't work quite the way you think they should for a given situation. And practicing ruling on the fly is going to help you address those situations that you're going to run into later on. Now, most D&D-alike games are going to provide a way to calculate a standard DC, which is a standard difficulty class or a standard target number. I'm going to include links down below to charts of DCs for games that I'm familiar with. Before I get to the last step, I want to talk about the science that I'm basing these steps on. In the 1980s, Dr. John Sweller discovered that there's a limit to how much new information a person can learn. That is, commit to long-term memory from short-term memory. And when you try to exceed that limit, when you try to cram more information into your brain after your short-term memory buffer, if you will, is full, you're just signing yourself up for stress, exhaustion, and distraction. This became part of what he later called cognitive load theory. His work focused on education and how much a student can learn in a classroom, but we can apply it to learning any information-heavy skill set, such as, in our case, GMing. I'm including a link to a video that explains Dr. Sweller's work in more detail below. I'd like you to follow my steps for 3 sessions. Then for the 4th, pick one of the steps and forget about it. Whichever one you like the least, just forget about it, pretend it doesn't exist for session 4. Then for session 5, do it again. Pick another one, forget about it, forget it exists. In session 6, do it again. 7, do it again. 8, do it again. And so on. By the time you've forgotten them all, you'll have a great grasp of the basics of GMing and a good foundation to build yourself into the kind of GM you want to become. Thank you for joining me today. Don't forget to support your local game store, and I'll see you at the table.